In the previous video, we introduced the definition of stress. We learned that stress is characterized by our passions or kshayas originating in consciousness. Passions are classified into two categories, aversions or dvesh, which includes anger, ego, sorrow, fear, disaffection, and disgust, or krodh, man, shok, bhai, arati, and jugupsa. Attachment or rag includes deceit, greed, affection, laughter, and lust, or maya, lobh, rati, hasya, and stri purush napunsak ved. Stress is manifested through these passions in three different modes: active stress, dormant stress, and potential stress. Let's take a closer look. Active stress consists of two components: passions such as being angry, feeling irritated, or being rude, and awareness of these passions while experiencing them. Thus, active stress is characterized by experiencing these passions or ashuddh upyog while being aware of it in those moments. Can you identify an example of active stress within yourself? How about examples when you are angry, sad, fearful, or irritated? Take a moment to visualize such active forms of stress within yourself. Next, let's discuss dormant stress. These are passions which exist in a dormant state, like a dormant volcano. For example, if we hate someone, we don't think about that person all the time, but our dislike exists in a dormant state and is just waiting to rise again in an active form whenever thoughts related to that person are triggered. As another example, even though most of us don't think constantly about our intense desire to be extremely wealthy, that desire remains in a dormant form and becomes active periodically. In fact, this occurs for every type of passion and constitutes dormant stress within us. While we may be actively worrying about only one thing at a time, we could be dormantly worried about many things at once. Dormant stress is characterized by unresolved passions or sushupta kshaya not being actively felt. It is important to recognize our dormant stress in order to fully uncover all modes of stress. In general, these dormant passions are not identified until we introspect on our emotions. Can you identify an example of dormant stress within yourself? Do you realize how such dormant passions could keep you internally stressful even after an undesirable event is over? Now let's delve into potential stress. When events and other people's behavior manifest per our desires, we normally feel that we are not under any stress. We tend to discover stress when we face unwanted or unexpected situations. For example, I may not be actively or visibly angry towards a specific person, and I may also not harbor any dormant anger towards him or her. However, I may get upset if that person treats me unfairly or behaves rudely with me if I have a strong expectation not to be treated that way. That means, although I have no active or dormant anger towards that person at the moment, I certainly have the potential to become angry. Potential stress is characterized by passions that have not yet manifested but are capable of being manifested due to existing opinions, expectations, and attachments. Forming hard expectations in life, such as something must or must not happen to me or others, can lead to potentially very stressful situations because we can't necessarily dictate events or the behavior of others. All active and dormant forms of stress manifest from potential stress, and it is the most difficult one to recognize because it requires us to introspect about our opinions, expectations, and attachments. Can you identify an example of potential stress in yourself and how it might have led you to experience active stress? There are certain types of passions that are expressed by us while others remain unexpressed. For example, we may find ourselves being visibly angry or irritated at times, which is easily noticed by others. This is an expressed or vyakta form of anger. Sometimes, in certain situations, we may not react with anger right away, but instead choose to hold on to a grudge and decide to avenge it later. We may appear completely calm and smiling on the outside. This is an unexpressed or avyakta form of anger. It is important to note that we express only certain forms of passions, and the majority of passions remain unexpressed. Sometimes, one passion forces another passion to remain in an unexpressed state. For example, if we are in a public setting and get upset about something, we might remain quiet because we feel our reputation would be hurt if we expressed ourselves. Here, ego forces anger to remain in an unexpressed state, even though they exist simultaneously. This example demonstrates the importance of being mindful of our expressed as well as unexpressed forms of stress in order to overcome stress completely. The important question is, do we recognize our stress in its entirety? Out of all the forms of passions, most of us are able to identify only a subset. Although we continuously experience them, perhaps dormantly, we remain unaware about the vast majority of those passions. For example, suppose we have fear about losing our job. In this case, the fear appears to be related to employment. However, if we keep asking the question why, we can trace our fear of losing employment to much deeper levels of fear. For example, fear of losing employment might stem from fear of losing possessions and esteem. That might stem from fear of an inability to sustain ourselves and our family. That might stem from fear of poor health and poor nutrition. And that might stem from a fear of death. Therefore, we can conclude that fear of unemployment is not just about fear of unemployment. Most people normally identify active stress as the only form of stress and therefore completely miss out on identifying dormant and potential forms of stress. We can use this stress identification diagram to discover hidden forms of stress. First, identify a particular active stress that occurs. Out of all active forms of stress, only a subset of them appear in the expressed form. So introspect carefully and make a list of active passions, even if they are not expressed. You can then introspect if any of your dormant passions become active or not. Most underlying form of stress is potential stress, from which active forms of stress arise periodically. So ask yourself, what opinions, expectations, and attachments lead you to feel that way? We hope this classification system gives you a tool to introspect and recognize your stress clearly. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.